The rain in Seattle didn't wash the city clean, it just made the grime slicker. I stood by the cracked window of our third-floor walk-up, watching the water streak the glass like tears. My reflection was a pale ghost against the dark street below, messy chestnut hair, a faded diner uniform I hadn't had the energy to change out of, and eyes that looked far too tired for 23. "Harper, please, stop pacing," my mother, Diane, whispered from the worn-out sofa. She was clutching a throw pillow to her chest, her knuckles white. "Maybe they won't come. Maybe they forgot." I turned, giving her a look that was softer than I felt. "People like that don't forget, Mom. Not when it's $50,000. As if summoned by the fear in the room, the knock came. It wasn't a pounding, aggressive bang like the landlord looking for rent. It was 3 sharp, precise raps. Controlled. Expectant. The air left the room. My mother let out a whimper, shrinking into the cushions. I took a breath that tasted like stale coffee and dread, walked to the door, and unlocked the deadbolt. I expected a wall of muscle. I expected guns, broken noses, and shouting. Instead, I found her. She stood in the hallway like a diamond in a coal mine. She was tall, encased in a charcoal 3-piece suit that probably cost more than this entire building. Her hair was a platinum blonde bob, sharp enough to cut glass, and her eyes were the color of ice on a deep lake, cold, blue, and terrifyingly intelligent. 2 men in dark coats stood behind her, but they were just scenery. She was the event. "Diane Miller," the woman said. Her voice was smooth, a rich contralto that vibrated in my chest. She didn't look at me. Her gaze was fixed over my shoulder at my mother. "I believe time is up." "Please," my mother sobbed, scrambling up from the couch but staying well back. "I just need another week." The shift at the factory picked up, and the woman stepped inside. She didn't shove me aside. She simply walked with such authority that I instinctively moved out of her path. She surveyed our living room, the peeling wallpaper, the leaking ceiling, the sheer desperation of it, with a look of mild distaste. "I am not a bank, Diane," she said, pulling a pair of black leather gloves off her hands, finger by finger. "I am Victoria Sterling. When I lend, I expect a return. You have missed 3 deadlines." Victoria Sterling. Even in the underground, the name was whispered with a mix of reverence and terror. She ran half the shipping docks on the West Coast and everything that moved through them. "I don't have it," my mother cried, falling to her knees. It was humiliating to watch. "Take the TV. Take the jewelry. Please, don't hurt me." Victoria sighed, a sound of pure boredom. She signaled to one of the men. "Check the bedroom. Find anything of value." "No." I stepped forward, blocking the hallway. The sudden movement drew Victoria's eyes to me for the first time. The room seemed to go quiet. She stopped. Her gaze started at my scuffed sneakers, traveled up my legs, lingered on the curve of my waist hidden beneath the oversized apron, and finally locked onto my face. It wasn't a lecherous look. It was calculating, like an appraiser looking at a rare painting found in a garage sale. "And who is this?" Victoria asked, tilting her head slightly. "My daughter." Mom wept. "Harper. She has nothing to do with this." "On the contrary," Victoria murmured. She took a step toward me. I held my ground, though my heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. She smelled of expensive rain, bergamot, and cold steel. She reached out, her hand hovering near my face. I flinched, expecting a strike. Instead, she caught my chin between her thumb and forefinger. Her skin was cool, her grip firm but not painful. She tilted my head up, forcing me to meet those icy eyes. "You have fire in you," she observed softly. "Most people cower when I walk in." You squared your shoulders. "My mother made a mistake," I said, my voice trembling but audible. "She's sick. She has a gambling problem. Breaking her legs won't get you your money." "True," Victoria conceded. Her thumb brushed against my lower lip, a stroke so shocking and intimate that my breath hitched. "But I cannot set a precedent of weakness. Someone has to pay." She dropped her hand and turned back to my mother. "The debt is $50,000. With interest, 60. I can't." "But," Victoria cut in, her voice sharpening. I am in need of something money is finding it hard to buy lately. Loyalty. Spirit. She turned back to me, her blue eyes darkening. Collateral. The word hung heavy in the damp air. What do you mean? I asked. Victoria adjusted her cuffs. I have a vacancy in my household. A personal assistant. A companion. Someone to handle my affairs that require discretion. The hours are long, the work is demanding, and you belong to me until the debt is worked off. My mother gasped. You want to take her? I'm offering a trade, Diane, Victoria said coldly. Your debt is wiped clean. Today. In exchange, Harper comes with me. She lives at my estate. She works for me. Exclusive rights to her time and loyalty. For how long? I asked. Victoria's eyes narrowed, a shark sensing blood in the water. Until I am satisfied the value has been recouped. Could be a year. Could be 5. No, Harper, you can't. Mom cried. I looked at my mother. A broken woman on a dirty floor. If I stayed, we'd be dead or homeless within the month. If I went, I looked at Victoria. She was dangerous. Lethal, arguably. But there was something else in that gaze. A challenge. She wasn't looking at me like a victim. She was looking at me like a puzzle she wanted to solve. I'll do it, I said. Harper. I'll do it, I repeated, louder this time. I stepped toward Victoria. On one condition. You leave her alone. Forever. The debt is gone the second I walk out that door. Victoria's lips curved into a smile. It was a terrifyingly beautiful thing. Deal. She didn't offer a handshake. She simply turned and walked to the door. Pack nothing. I prefer to dress my investments myself. We leave now. The first month at the Sterling estate was a lesson in elegant captivity. The mansion sat on a cliff overlooking the Pacific, a fortress of glass and steel. I was given a room that was bigger than my entire old apartment, filled with silks and Egyptian cotton. But the door locked from the outside at night, and every corridor was watched by security cameras. My job wasn't what I expected. I wasn't cleaning floors. I was organizing Victoria's life. I managed her private schedule, I screened her calls, and I sat in the corner of rooms while men with scars and briefcases discussed shipping lanes and territory disputes. I became her shadow. And with every passing day, the fear I felt for Victoria began to curdle into something else. Something hotter. She was exacting and cold to everyone, but with me, there were cracks in the ice. A lingering glance across the dinner table. The way she would stand just a little too close when checking the documents I held. It all came to a head on a stormy Tuesday in November. We were in her study. The power had flickered out due to the storm, leaving the room lit only by the roaring fireplace. I was pouring her a drink, whiskey, neat, my hands shaking slightly from the exhaustion of a 14-hour day. You're trembling, Harper, Victoria said. She was sitting in a high-backed leather chair, watching me. I'm tired, I said, walking over to hand her the crystal glass. And it's cold. Victoria took the glass, her fingers brushing mine. She didn't pull away. She wrapped her hand around my wrist, her grip firm, pulling me closer until I was standing between her spread knees. The air in the room suddenly felt thick, charged with weeks of unspoken tension. You've been adequate, she murmured, looking up at me. The firelight danced in her blue eyes, softening the sharp angles of her face. Just adequate? I challenged, emboldened by the darkness. I saved you $3 million on the port deal last week. Victoria smirked. Impressive, then. She tugged on my wrist, and I stumbled, falling onto my knees before her. My heart hammered against my ribs. I was at her eye level now. She set the whiskey down on the side table without looking away from me. Do you hate me, Harper? She whispered. For taking you? I should, I breathed. My eyes dropped to her lips. They were full, painted a dark crimson. I really should. But I don't want to leave, I admitted, the truth spilling out before I could stop it. Victoria's gaze dropped to my mouth. The air crackled. She reached out, sliding her hand into my hair, her nails scraping lightly against my scalp. It sent a shiver straight down my spine that had nothing to do with the cold. "Good," she whispered. She leaned in, and I met her halfway. The kiss wasn't gentle. It was a collision. It tasted of whiskey and power. Victoria kissed like she did everything else, with absolute command. Her lips crushed against mine, demanding, claiming. I gasped, opening to her, and her tongue swept into my mouth, hot and confident. I gripped the lapels of her expensive blazer, pulling her closer, forgetting the debt, forgetting my mother, forgetting everything except the feeling of Victoria Sterling unraveling in my arms. She groaned low in her throat, a sound of vibration that I felt in my own chest, and pulled me tighter until there was no space left between us. When she finally pulled back, we were both breathless. Her lipstick was smudged, her eyes blown wide and dark with desire. "Go to your room, Harper," she said, her voice raspy. "Before I forget that I'm a woman of discipline." I fled the room, my lips burning, knowing my life had just become infinitely more complicated. Weeks turned into months. The dynamic shifted. I was no longer just the assistant. I was the partner. The locks on my door were removed. I sat at the table with the men during meetings, not in the corner. But the world of Victoria Sterling was not safe. It happened at the Winter Gala, a black tie event held in a downtown hotel ballroom. I was wearing a silk emerald gown Victoria had bought for me, the fabric clinging to every curve. Victoria was in a tuxedo that made half the women in the room stare. We were standing near the balcony when I saw him, a man from the rival Russo family. He wasn't looking at the crowd, he was looking at Victoria's back, his hands slipping inside his jacket. My instinct took over. I didn't think. I moved. "Victoria, move!" I screamed, shoving her hard to the side just as the pop of a silenced pistol spat through the air. The bullet meant for her heart shattered the champagne glass in her hand. Chaos erupted. Screams. Security swarming. I hit the floor, Victoria landing on top of me. Her eyes were wide, scanning the room, assessing the threat, but then they snapped down to me. "Are you hit?" she demanded, her voice cracking with a panic I had never heard before. She frantically ran her hands over my ribs, my stomach. "Harper, answer me." "I'm fine," I gasped, adrenaline flooding my system. "I'm okay." "Did they get him?" "They got him," she growled, looking up as her security dragged the man out the exit. She looked back down at me. We were lying on the marble floor of a ballroom, surrounded by shattered glass and screaming elites, but she looked at me as if we were the only two people on Earth. "You foolish girl," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You could have been killed. You bought my life, remember?" I tried to joke, though my voice shook. "Can't let the investment go to waste." Victoria's face twisted. She grabbed the lapels of my dress and hauled me up, not to stand, but to crash her lips against mine. This kiss was different. It wasn't about power. It was desperate. It was terrifyingly possessive. It was a kiss of sheer relief. She kissed me like she was trying to breathe life back into herself. Her hands tangled in my hair, holding me still as she devoured me, uncaring of the hundreds of people watching. I wrapped my arms around her neck, kissing her back with everything I had, reassuring her with my body that I was still there, still warm, still hers. She broke the kiss but didn't let go, pressing her forehead against mine. "The debt is cancelled," she said fiercely. "It's gone. You hear me?" "I don't care about the debt," I whispered back. "Good," Victoria said, pulling back to look me in the eye. The ice in her gaze had melted, replaced by a blazing blue fire. "Because you're never leaving anyway." "Is that a threat, Ms. Sterling?" I asked, a small smile touching my lips. Victoria Sterling, the woman who owned the city, smiled back. It was a genuine, breathtaking smile. "No, Harper," she said, brushing a stray lock of hair from my face. "It's a promise." She took my hand, interlacing her fingers with mine. "Let's go home." And as we walked out of the ballroom, flanked by guards but connected only to each other, I knew she was right. I hadn't just paid off a debt. I had found the one thing worth more than all the money in her vault. I had found my equal.